And we are live. What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Cider Report back for another video. With me is Crafty Keela. So, yeah, we have back to your kind of regularly scheduled type of content from the channel. A little bit unlike last night's stream. Well, last night's stream was unlike anything else that I do here. So yeah, a lot of stuff has happened in the last little while that I haven't talked about. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of jump straight into them, really. So I think the kind of funnest one, just because of how absolutely fucking absurd it was, is so QAnon, lovely group of lads. They had the idea that no president after the 13th president has been a legitimate president because of some law that was like passed or something like that. And so they are calling into question every other president since the 13th president. And because of that, they gathered in a square and tried to summon back to life, much as God our Savior did for the baby Jesus all them years ago, and try to summon the soul, the spirit of JFK Jr. Why Jr.? I don't know, but Jr. back to life, so that he can declare Biden as an illegitimate president, and that he would make it, because he has the power to do so, I guess, that he would make it so that Trump was re-elected and he can resume as president. Now, before we kind of jump into, the absolute lunacy of it and stuff like this, does it not need to be kind of pointed out that if every president since the 13th president has been illegitimate, wouldn't that also make it that Trump was also an illegitimate president because he was there after the third, he wasn't the 12th or 13th president, he was the, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, just to say my audio isn't going through to the stream.
I know it is now. I noticed that. Yeah. I fixed it. I fixed it. I did fix it.
You're better at tech than me, but that doesn't say much because I'm shit at tech. Yeah, no, the funny part about this is the idea that, first of all, people can come back from the dead.
Yeah.
Because the whole conspiracies that had floated around for a while, that these people weren't actually dead. They were in either the deep state and hidden from view, or that they were taken by aliens or some crap like that. So
naturally,
you're talking about conspiracy theorists that didn't actually believe that these people had died. So them coming back and taking over the reins, quote unquote, again, didn't seem that far-fetched. And the problem is, at the moment, people are so polarized with where they're getting their news from, that no matter how insane it sounds, if it's coming from the news source that they're used to getting their news from, then anything can be made presentable to them by that news source.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
but critical thinking goes out the window. Critical thinking is not a thing anymore.
It kind of has to, right? Because it's not just that, it's not just because you have to now accept, even temporarily, that people can, in the modern day and age, I get that many millions of people think that this happened roughly 2,000 years ago, but that in the modern day and age, that people can just come back to life. It's really strange. It's Yeah, it's
But
bizarre.
it plays on the ultra conservatism that exists within these people. They are ultra Christian. They're not just standard Christians. They are next level um, evangelicals. They're not even the typical evangelicals that we would be used to, even on an international scale. They have gone so far into evangelicalism that if Jesus could rise from the dead, why the hell can other people not? Because it's the whole chosen one. Trump is supposedly the chosen one in their eyes, and that's what's scary. It's the devotion to this myth that they're creating around Trump, that he is the martyr, he is going to save them, he is the savior, and anything that helps them along that journey is seen as a good thing to the, and they are. It is like a cult. It is turning into a cult.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I understand all of that, but I mean, like, just the level of reality that you have to just deny in order to accept that this is what's after happening, like, is like, it should be worrying to everybody. Like, they're like, it's not just because okay, I'm not saying that members of QAnon have been, how should I say this nicely, interlinked with reality. That's not been the case, but just the level of everything that you have to deny to be able, you know what I mean? You kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like, you have to think that, like, people can come back from the dead. You have to simultaneously think that every president after the 13th has been, you know, fraudulent apart from Trump because he's the one that they love. Um,
But again, it comes
I
back to this idea of I mean, the fraudulent stuff is very worrying, because there's obviously, there would be presidents after the 13th president that they would have, in that moment, especially the older crowd, would have supported. And it's the idea of, it's the introduction of alternative facts, that if
yeah,
you, and the more someone denies your alternative fact, the more you cling on to it. It's like a fear of rejection, really. That and now we've gotten ourselves to the point of complete polarization, especially in the States, that they need to cling on to whatever ridiculous ideas are coming out, because if they don't, the fear of rejection from the community that they've become immersed in is so great that they can't even fathom it. Because who else will have them? That's the question. If they reject, and you've seen this over the last couple of weeks and months with the riots in the Capitol. That
yeah,
when the riots in the Capitol, when they learned, some of them learned that Trump didn't actually go with them. That was such a betrayal. There was people in mourning after that. Weirdly enough, I read a few articles about people who completely broke down in the days after following the Capitol, because Trump, their Lord and Master, did not actually come with them when he said he was going to come with them. They couldn't understand why he lied to them, or why. And then they rejected the notion because they realized they had been lied to. They rejected the other notions, and then they were cut off completely from the community that they'd been a part of for 18 months or 2 years or longer.
yeah.
So it's that alienation, that fear of alienation, that a lot of people in that Trumpism are afraid to, and you can see it in the Republican Party as well. They're actually afraid um, to reject any notion from QAnon, for the fear of rejection, for the fear of alienation. It's an incredible thing. It's damaging, it's terrifying, but it's incredible to witness.
Yeah, yeah. Look, it is obviously, all of those things, but it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, I usually try and come at these points from a position of, I'm trying to understand kind of like where you're coming from, and try and kind of, like, try and put myself in the mind of the people that I don't agree with. But it's one or two steps too much for me. No, I can't. I
I
just
can
can't.
see it. I can understand it. I don't agree with it, but I can understand the desperation of some of these people. They have been let down fundamentally by the political and economic system. There are people in our generation and the generations just before mine that will never own their own.
Oh, and that's terrifying. And that was Democrats and Republicans. It was the establishment. And when Trump came in saying refreshingly, we're going to drain the swamp,
Yeah.
the question becomes, what kind of swamp are you talking about? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. True. Yeah. I
and
bet.
because of individualism as well, you have a situation where people genuinely believe that a rich millionaire will save them, can save them, and so they should rule.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's just way too many kind of like extra steps in there that you just have to believe, that you have to accept, that I just can't fucking wrap my head around it like at all. I will.
They believe the word of the Bible is literal and true. Every word of it. It's not a huge leap to believe that someone can come back from the dead when someone has already done it in your little framework.
I love the way that you had to hesitate there.
Yeah, I was like, let's be delicate here.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah. Let's try not like unnecessarily offend people.
no, well, it again, it's part of what I've done over the past 7, no, what, 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, is look at why people believe what they believe, why they cling on to the ideas that they cling on to, how societies change, how they move. And this is all part of sociology. This is why I love sociology, is to see the little bricks in the road before the road is complete, and this is part of it. We are going into an unprecedented time because of social media. We've never had a system of social media where information is immediate and everything. People are so impatient now. I think I said this to you earlier. People don't know how to wait. People don't know what patience is anymore because we live in a society where everything is now.
Yeah.
They're used to the convenience of it. They're used to the immediacy of it. And to an extent, they're not. A lot of people aren't used to fighting for what they have. They're not used to struggle, because we've grown up in an era of the Celtic Tiger for Ireland in boom years, the last 30 years, and it's only in the last 10, 15 years that we've seen a decline in that. But most people, especially in the middle classes, and everyone in America likes to believe they're middle class, but in the middle classes, it took a while for that ripple effect to actually affect them. And that's who you see coming out to defend Trump, is the kind of middle classes and the working class that literally have been left behind for the last 60 years.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, I 100% agree with like what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know, man. Trying to get into the mind of why. I mean, even if you were to excuse the people who voted for Trump once, why you could like just how you could ever even fathom voting for him a second time is just hey, it's wild to me. It's wild,
But like there was people that didn't want Nixon to stand down.
Which
Do you know what I mean? Look at our own history. Look at our own history, man.
yeah,
Charles Haughey is still considered one of the best leaders in Irish history because he was honest about being a prick.
yeah, but like
Yes, he was a crook, but he was honest about being a crook.
Yeah,
that's what I hear
true.
from Charles Haughey fans.
True. Yeah, like, yeah, but it's just like, how could you how could you like rationally be okay with Nixon like staying in power? You know what? Like after everything that like happened, like just the like blatant corruption, the Watergate, like just how you could
Well,
hear
here,
it, how
because
you could hear about that and be like, no, he should probably stay
because
there.
people expect corruption from politicians. Big deal. What's the story? Like what's the big deal? That's what
Yeah.
I hear from people who would defend Nixon. Like, we know politicians are corrupt. We know that they do anything and swindle any way, which way to win an election. They lie to us to our faces. We know that. We expect corruption in politics. And I agree with Rob Parks there. Trump supporters feel extremely disenfranchised. Rob, you should come on the stream.
Yeah, you should.
He has a lot to say. He does have a lot to say, and there's not many places that he can actually say it. So Rob, come on the stream. There's a StreamYard key there. This is what I was saying. They feel that a corrupt Republican is still better than a straight Democrat, mainly because, again, go back in the last 20, 30 years, what was the most damaging thing to happen in American political life?
Yeah, no, true.
It was the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act.
Yeah.
Who did that? It was fucking Bill Clinton. Which led to the merger of the different types of banks and the financial houses, which led to Too Big to Fail, which obviously was going to fail. That was a Democrat that did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely divide and conquer, man.
Yeah,
Definitely.
100%. It's just. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I just find it's Sorry, Rob is asking where the link is.
It's on the. It's
pinned in the live chat. Yeah, it's pinned in the live
Yes.
chat. Yeah, like look, what the fuck was I gonna say? Lost my train of thought now. It's just gone. It was there, but it's just not no more. It's gone now.
It's okay. See, you bring me on thinking we're gonna.
Oh. And she just vanished. Alright, okay. Mid sentence. She's not in the back room, by the way, just in case anybody thinks that I took Keela out for whatever reason. There you are. What
Crafty
the...
can't tech. It's okay. We all know this.
Howdy.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, but you bring me on expecting this big conversation
Second,
over the
I
stream.
can't
That's
hear
what happens. This is what happens.
Yeah, so
How about
Rob,
that?
tell us your thoughts.
Sorry, I actually missed that because my settings were wrong. I didn't hear any of that.
We're talking about the QAnon conspiracy.
Shit. Have you guys seen the HBO documentary? I think it's like Down the Rabbit Hole or whatever. And the guy actually has solid evidence as to who may not have been the original Q, but took over Q.
I don't think
I've
so.
heard of it. I haven't seen it. I have heard that there's a documentary about it.
I would highly recommend it if you're interested in the QAnon perspective. I would highly recommend it. In terms of people who believe in QAnon, I go back to this. These people are disenfranchised. They feel insignificant in their own lives for some reason, and they want to be right about something major. It's very much like Flat Earth in that way.
Like, but I mean, like it like has to be slightly different in the sense that like people who believe in flat Earth are not disenfranchised by anything. They're just, they're just wrong. Like, I think that I personally think that Ricky Gervais has a fantastic bit about just the science denial in general, which is that people have become so accustomed to this idea that you are entitled to your own opinion, which of course you are. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And there are certain things that like maybe people shouldn't have their own opinion about. Like we've like you know what I mean? Like if you, Rob, just for argument's sake, if you come to me and if you say I think that the earth is 6,000 years old, oh, okay, you're like that's fine, but you're just wrong. You're just wrong. Like it like you shouldn't be allowed to have an opinion on how old the planet that you're living on is. Like you know what I mean? Like
Fair enough.
in the same sense as like if you think that the earth is flat, like again, sure, you can think that all day long, but it don't like it shouldn't matter what you think. We know that the earth is not flat. We know that it's spherical. Like it's just
I think the issue comes in, it's with science denialism is we're becoming more of a intellectual society, and so I think this is a rebellion against expertism. They don't like experts. They don't want to be told what to do. This ties into the lagerlurgy. They don't want their freedoms to be or withdrawn, and so I think it's because they don't feel empowered in their own lives. And then of course you have the anti-Semites who are just whatever.
yeah.
Who never miss a good opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, look, like, how, like, is there a way that you guys can kind of think of to sort of quote unquote like rescue somebody from going down the like alt-right rabbit hole of like believing QAnon? Like, is there any, you know what I mean? Like, what are people like, you know, me and like other kind of like smaller creators online, like, what are we not doing that we could be doing more of to stop people from coming? You know what I mean? Like, is it kind of like, is it video essays? Is it like long thought out, like fucking PowerPoint presentations of like debunking certain stuff? Like, you know.
So
what
I
is
was
it?
talking to Ranty about this not too long ago. Ranty is an ex-flat earther, and what he was saying was that there are like 3 or 4 at the top of the kind of flat Earth society, or flat Earth community, I suppose we can call it that in the loosest kind of term. And
It's
you
cool.
know, if one person says this, then like these people will support it. If another person says this, these people will support it. But they will never watch debunking videos. They will never. And the only reason why they engage in live streams is to trigger someone or try to trigger because it's fun. So I was asking Ranty this privately. I was like, well, what can be done? But here's the issue. For me, the issue isn't attacking the people who already believe, or trying to convince the people who already believe. The biggest thing is what you do, Stephen, which is have a reasonable discussion with anyone. That's the first thing, because if someone comes onto a stream and they're outright attacked, then the walls are going to go up further. The best thing for people like ourselves is our channels, is to do what we're doing, is to have the discussions, is to present reasonable, digestible information. And then for me, as a sociologist, I have to believe in people to listen to what I say and weigh up the pros and cons. And part of the problem is that in our school systems, not just here in Ireland, not just in the UK, but throughout the world, in our school system, critical thinking is all but kicked out of us because they need the next generation of workers for as cheaply as possible. So they don't want you learning the political system, the economic system. They don't want you learning about trade union rights. They don't want you learning any of this stuff, because for the wealthy, then they actually have to redistribute the wealth that they're taking from people. Because where does profit come from? But unpaid human labor. You can't get extra profit out of a machine. That's called, even in sociology, we recognize this is It's called dead profit, because you can't get extra profit from a machine. A machine has been made by other humans, in that regard. So it's actually dead labor. It's dead labor. So you're not going to get any extra profit than what that machine is going to create. So where does your profit come from? And from 7 years of studying sociology, this is what I know. It comes from unpaid human labor. You don't pay your workers the value of what they produce. Everybody knows this. Everybody understands this. But they wrap it up in this fair day's pay for a fair for a working day, like, the idea of fair pay. And so the whole point of government is to back up the wealth creators, quote unquote, which is seen as the wealthy. And so they're going to impose things, if they can, to protect that wealth. And that means driving down wages, race to the bottom.
So when you say...
Oh, sorry. But you've seen that over the last 15 years. I
was going to say, when you say the government's role is to back up the wealth the wealth generators, do you believe that across the board? Because in the States, one could argue that that's key. That's a key point of division between the Republicans and the Democrats. Is that the Republicans are essentially, as you say, they believe that, if they support the billionaires, then you have this trickle down effect, and the working class will actually benefit, which is complete bullshit. But on the Republican or on the Democratic side, actually it's quite the opposite, in that their belief is to regulate government or regulate business so that the working class is not taken advantage.
That's old style Democrats.
Okay.
So there's two styles that I've seen anyway. Well, there's multiple styles, but there's two main styles of capitalism. There is, as you said, trickle down economics, which is neoliberal capitalism, and then there is regulatory capitalism. And regulatory capitalism came in after World War One. After the Great Depression, in the mid 30s, you've seen it in the States
with FDR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
FDR wanted to bring in a new Book of Human Rights, which he never got to enact, because he said he'd enact it after the war, and he died before the war ended. And of course, they're not going to allow that. So I would be for regulatory democracy. Or regulatory capitalism, because I do believe capitalism can work, but it needs that balance. It needs the balance. Yes, you need to protect the wealth creators, but you also need to be able to protect the society, because what trickle-down economics did, what neoliberalism did, it presented the idea that we live in an economy. We don't live in an economy, we live in a society. That's what regulatory capitalism understands. We live in a society. What regulatory capitalism saw was, 50, 60, 70% corporation tax, to make sure that we could maintain roads, housing, the hospital infrastructure, the school infrastructure, in which case you can have healthy workers, you can have, and because it was paid by the state, it was cheaper on the corporations to give it to the governments to run all this shit, to build roads, to build housing. They didn't have to worry about it. But now they see housing as a commodity, and so now there's the housing bubble that you see all over the world. Now housing is a commodity. In the 20s, 30s and 40s, it wasn't seen as a commodity. It was seen as a symbol of status, yes, but it wasn't seen as a commodity to buy and sell. And that's what trickle-down economics, that's what neoliberalism has done. It has presented everything, even down to water, even down to betting on countries, whether or not they'll be able to pay their debts next year. That's what trickle-down economics has done.
Yeah, it still kind of embarrasses me that I used to believe that worked. It's just,
I believe that regulatory capitalism will work.
Yeah. You're going back about like you're like talking like 6 years, but yeah, I used to believe that trickle down economics actually worked, that it was a good thing, and that but
why? The reason is because it's rammed down your throat the idea that it can work. because you've never seen anything else work, or
Yeah.
even work even remotely to the way it was. And you and I, Stephen, we were raised in the Celtic Tiger, even at the last little bit of the Celtic Tiger, but we were raised with this works. Look, we're getting all this money. We can afford all this. People can afford to have more than one car in a household, which never fucking happened. Do you know? So in our minds, our experience of the world was that it worked.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s with Reagan. So
Yeah. So you learned that it didn't work.
Well, the thing was, I didn't understand that it didn't work until I got to college, and college opened up my, it's cliched, but college really opened up my perspective on society and economics. Because before then, when high school years and formative years, I was a neocon. Like I was, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Yep.
Like I didn't give a shit about people's welfare.
I have friends who are like that.
And I basically had no compassion whatsoever for people who didn't contribute to society in a meaningful way. So I have since revised my opinion on that, because after Reagan and then Bush Jr., I realized that protecting the billionaire class and protecting the corporate America, making them citizens, doesn't work. It just means more exploitation, and I think that ties into Trump supporters, because the working class, the blue collar workers, have been fucked over, and they don't realize who are the people who are actually responsible for fucking them over.
Yeah.
I think they know who fucked them over, but the problem with it
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think that, like,
I think they do.
I
think they do.
I think that the vast majority of Republican candidates for, like, presidency or for, like, Congress, Senate, on down, have told them that no, it's not the rich and the powerful, it's not the corporations, it's the immigrants. It's the immigrants who are coming in, who are taking your jobs away from you, and so we're going to stop them coming in so that those jobs can go back to you. It's not.
No, I don't believe that. Because if you talk to conservatives, I have talked to conservatives, and if you talk to conservatives, what they'll say is, we don't mind immigration. We don't mind it. It's just illegal immigration. Now, for me, no person can be illegal because they're a human being, but for a lot of people, that's the problem that they have. It's the idea and it's the myth that has been going around, not just conservative channels. Even right back to the beginning of the Iraq War, you saw the hint on the likes of CNN, on the likes of just beyond Fox News. What's the other one? MSNBC.
MSNBC is far left.
Well, actually,
well,
that's questionable.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
MSNBC was creating this myth that there was people that were creeping into the country illegally.
Yeah.
Which whips up hysteria. And the other thing is the idea of the 24-hour news cycle. In and around the Iraq War, you saw the invention of the 24-hour news broadcasts. Before that, it was a couple of hours a day, like what we have here. You have your 6-1 news, you have your 10 o'clock news, you have your midday news, and that was it.
Yeah.
Whereas now it is on cycle 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I have opinions on what the failings of 24-hour news network, primarily because of lack of international news.
If you talk to conservatives, it's not simply immigration that bothers them. It's the idea of illegal immigration. People that are not paying their dues to go to their country.
Honestly, I think that's a dog whistle from conservative side, and because I think from that, because Trump embodied that. He basically cut off almost all immigration from quote unquote shithole countries.
Well, yeah, but the other point of Trump, the whole phenomenon of Trump, you have to remember, is Trump is not a politician.
No.
He came from the outside. He was not seen to most people as a politician.
but he has a tremendous base, to the point that the Republican Party is now the party of Trump. Moderates and even even some what would have been considered ultra conservatives, like Liz Cheney, are being left out of the party because of, and I think this is also tied into why they don't understand who fucked them over, because they do not agree with Democrats on social issues. And so they immediately believe Democrats are evil. And so they won't listen to any sort of argument about whether or not the Democrats are actually helping them financially.
Yeah, I think for kind of working class conservatives, they do know that the banks fuck them over. They do know that corporations fuck them over. They do know that it's politics that have fucked them over. They don't care. They don't distinguish between the two parties. A lot of people who entered into the Republican Party in the last 10 years or 6 years have done so because Trump was not a politician. It was the same thing on the other side of in the UK recently with what's his face, Jeremy
Corbyn.
Oh, in the UK,
Corbyn,
that was Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah,
it was the same thing on the other side. Only
Yeah.
this was ultra right instead of ultra left. You've seen a shitload, and I know them personally, of left wingers of far left enter into the Labour Party just to make sure that Corbyn was elected as the leader of the Labour and stayed the leader of the Labour Party. Didn't matter how much it tore itself apart. And then you also saw there were some comments, very, very questionable comments, and the right wing jumped on them, and the left had to actually, for once in their life, defend someone who was an anti-Semite. But because he was on the right side of anti-Semitism, now there is a difference, and I've always made this point, there is a difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. There is a difference. But this person was an anti-Semite.
Okay.
And so you saw left-wing people who apparently hate anti-Semitism defend an anti-Semite because he was their type of anti-Semite. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing in the US, only on the right side.
The thing is with Trump, this is where I kind of go back to the social issue, is we have seen a rise, the Southern Poverty Defense, I can't remember the name, they have seen a rise in hate groups, and because of this whole America First nonsense, and the idea that we have Tucker Carlson talking about replacement theory, that the Democrats want immigrants to come over because Hispanics tend to vote more Democratic than they do Republican, or more Democrat than they do Republican. And so this idea that whites are being replaced, and so we are losing our country. And that's where the Trump base is really hitting home. I think that's where Trump really hit home.
But
I mean,
then
he called Mexicans rapists.
Yeah,
in his first address.
But then you also saw Cubans vote very heavily for Trump.
Which is true, yeah, but I mean they're more likely to vote Democrat, which I mean, like, and you don't even really need to do like a deep dive into like who they are, who they're not, like what type of like policies they're for, or what type of policies they're against. I mean, to me, it's pretty much just fucking straightforward. Like, the Democrats are okay, generally speaking, with immigrants coming into the country, and Republicans, generally speaking, are against.
There was more
generally,
people.
Generally speaking, yes, I know there was more people deported under Obama than any other president. I know that. I know that. That's what I'm saying.
Let's
in
not
general,
sugarcoat it.
In general,
let's not sugarcoat it. They're both as bad as each other.
That is true. But Democrats don't talk about immigration as though it is a bad thing. They will have bad stances on immigration, like whilst they're in office. But they won't go out there and publicly say we can't have people coming into the country. And Republicans will.
The conservatives. This is part of the problem for conservatives who want to believe in the Democrats, because by saying that, they're as bad as each other in terms of their responses to immigration, in terms of deportations. But at least, and again, it comes back to the Charles Haughey thing. At least the Republicans are honest about it.
Yeah,
And
Chris
that's
Rock.
in their minds, that's what they're thinking. But at least they'll say it.
Yeah, Chris Rock
Democrats
had
pretend.
a bit where he's like, "I love Southern racism because at least they'll tell you
Yeah.
that they hate you." Whereas Northern racism, they'll sugarcoat it and they'll have lots of dog whistles, and so, yeah, that goes to your point of the fact that Democrats.
And again,
aren't honest with
I'm not defending the Republicans in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know.
But
know.
I have been in conversations for the last 10, 15 years with people of all nationalities, of all playing parts on the field. So I have had this conversation with a lot of different people, particularly in the last 6 years in relation to republicanism, because it's something that fascinated me. Yeah, you get a sociologist on to talk about politics, you're never going to get a word in. So I'm going to shut up now for a minute.
I mean, we'll have some. Well, look, it's not just because you're, because of your academic background. It's just because you've said that you're more kind of like centre left, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and I'm far left, so I mean, we're gonna have some disagreements. Yeah,
So
I'm a fucking socialist. We're going to have disagreements.
I love having the conversations.
I see, Crafty. You made some comments where I question you being center left, although I realize that left in the United States and left in Europe are
very different.
And everywhere else.
things.
Very different.
Everywhere else, yes, are two different things. So, what are I'm curious what your problem with, or what are the challenges of socialism? What are the reasons why socialism would work?
I don't reject the notion that socialism doesn't work. I just reject the idea that it's needed. I believe that democracy, that capitalism can work when it's regulated. So I'd be for, because we've seen it work. We have seen it work. We have seen it be efficient. But it needs to be regulated. That's what governments should be doing, is regulating capitalism. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
And it should be a worldwide standard. And now, especially now that we have such a worldwide economy, there should be a standard for the world. But the question is, how is that implemented? And I don't have the answer for that. And I don't pretend to have the answer for that. Up until now, when you have regulatory capitalism, it can work. And it can work efficiently. We've seen it. We see it in Sweden, we see it in Denmark, we see it in all of the Nordic countries, we've seen it throughout the world, that it can work.
We even see it in the United States in terms of economic growth under Democratic presidents as opposed to Republican presidents. So I can't imagine, I don't want to compare ourselves to the Scandinavian countries because, well, there are a lot of reasons not that I don't think that comparison is adequate.
But yeah, it's not that I reject socialism. I just don't think a different system or a new system is necessarily needed or necessary.
Okay.
Because I would like to see a little bit more democracy in my democracy, but
very true.
I don't think economics will end up driving any major change. The economics of anything. I mean, it always does. I mean, it's always kind of running in the background. But I think the U.S. totalitarianism of one flavor or another is definitely coming. One is sort of born out of hysteria of imagined slights and kind of cultural unrest, and the other one might end up being something more like kind of an environmental desperation to, if you end up, say we end up getting a few more scares where there's actually a real kind of knee-jerk panic towards climate change, and you end up getting a group of people who just decide, you know what, it doesn't, democracy is no longer good. We're throwing out deliberation. We have to do this, and we have to execute our enemies. That kind of thing. I could see a lot of different totalitarian movements popping up in the next, 10 to 20 years over some issues. What the U.S. is going through right now is mostly in its head, and by and large, a lot of it is built out of a generational conflict that's been going on since Vietnam. I mean, it's sad. It was one of the things Barack Obama that I agreed with. That he used to say that he was tired of that kind of hoary old debate between the peaceniks and the pro-war types, and they cut themselves off and divided themselves into these these camps, and that's basically metastasized now in the Fox News generation, where it basically, yeah, I mean, and it's weird because Fox News is kind of playing a dangerous game. Its market is demographically dying off, and a lot of those, so it's looking for new ones, and the easiest thing to do that with is what I'm seeing right now. It'd be like the people polled that voted for Glenn Youngkin in Virginia for governor, who cited as their number one concern, quote unquote, education.
Yes.
And it's interesting because when that is used in polling, when people normally are asked, why is education your concern? The number one reason about education is government funding of our schools. And in this time, though, for those particular voters, is the first time it's ever been perverted where, if you were to dig in deep, those people are concerned about critical race theory being taught to their kids.
That's right.
Even though they don't understand what critical race theory is.
Yeah.
They're just being fed a bunch of bullshit from a lot of right-wing conservative stuff. So the moral panic is working, and it's being designed to create a new generation of morally enraged, ignorant, kind of backward people who are going to vote for these kinds of goofy social media bonfires instead of actually paying attention to how things are actually organized, because that stuff's harder to figure out. It's easier to get people to clutch their pearls than to stop, reflect, and think a minute about the direction of what the country should take and what we should do to make things better.
Yeah, I live in Virginia. Unfortunately, my brain is completely blanking on the Democratic candidate. But while I agree with him, he ran a horrible campaign.
He wasn't a good candidate. Yeah.
No,
are you talking about
he came out
McCullough?
and basically said parents
Terry
need to
McCullough,
stay
yeah.
the hell out of classrooms, which I agree with. But that triggered the whole education issue. It gave a gift to the Republicans.
Yeah.
Because they're like, he doesn't care about parents. He doesn't give a shit about your opinion. So yeah, I agree. It's more about parents having a say for some reason.
I mean, this is
the
an
interesting thing is to
No, go ahead, Go ahead, Jefferson.
Sorry, I just want to spring out that real quick. So McAuliffe, there was an article written I think it was last year in Time Magazine about Terry McAuliffe, and they were talking about whether or not how Biden was going to do in a potential second term run, and they were like, well, if he doesn't run and he ends up resigning and then kind of passes it on to Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris ends up running essentially for Biden's second term. There was rumblings amongst Democrat Party power players that they wouldn't really be interested in backing her. And the one that they were super excited about was Terry McAuliffe. Now, keep in mind, this was like 9-10 months before this campaign kicked off. Now, as far as I can tell, like if he lost to somebody like Glenn Youngkin, who's not that slick,
no,
because the Republican primary that was run in Virginia was really unusual, even for Democrats or Republicans, but McAuliffe probably is going to become less of a. They're not going to put him front and center for the Democratic Party anymore, and they need to quit doing that, because it's like they put somebody out there that was going to be this kind of milquetoast, middle of the road, the kind of third way conservative Democrat.
He's a Clinton Democrat.
Yeah, and the biggest problem the Democrats. I'll make this final point. The biggest issue that the Democrats have at this point. There was an article written in 2015. I think it was in the New York Times. Or the Wall Street Journal. It was, I got to look her name up, but it's called The Submerged State. And it was this notion that the government tends to do better, politicians tend to do better when they can run on programs that the public identifies actually coming from the government. But the problem is that a lot of the efforts that are made by sort of the neo-libs and the Clinton-style Democrats, Hillary Clinton said it herself. She wanted a perfect hand-in-glove relationship between the regulation, administration, and bureaucracy of the state and the operations of private business and industry, so that everything would run smoothly and for the benefit of all. Perfect. The problem with that is that the state's role ends up becoming bad cop. So when things go bad, private industry tells the public that it was the state's fault. The state screwed up, the state didn't regulate correctly, or the state over-regulated, and that's what cost you your jobs, or poisoned your water, or poisoned your air, etc. They just shift the blame so the government gets in a position where it can't take credit for doing anything good, and it can only sit on its hands and accept when they get blamed for doing something awful. That's what Clinton Democrats have turned the state into. That's why you can't get Democrats to win on policy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop it now.
Well, I just want to say one thing. That so I think that's an excellent point, Jefferson. But I wanted to go back to the education piece, because I thought that was very interesting, the issues around Virginia, that there was an education component that was actually twisted into this topic of critical race theory, when typically the argument is that we have an education problem, which we do in the United States, and this is essentially the reason why we're in the situation we're in now, is we have degraded our education system so much that we actually have people that believe things like the earth is flat, that climate change is a hoax, that vaccines don't work, that QAnon exists, that it got tapped into in the 2016 and 2020 elections, and it's going to continue, where the folks who are the so-called experts, or people that are actually educated on a topic, are seen as in an ivory tower, are evil, are being, like, I'm a climate scientist, like, people are constantly saying, you're getting money to do your science is not legitimate, it's faked. This is all, from my perspective, it all stems around education. Like, it's going to be impossible, like Cider and Port was saying, what do we do to convince people that, like, your position is tenuous at best? It's extremely hard to convince somebody who's got it in their mind that they're on the Mount Stupid of the Dunning-Kruger curve, that what they're saying is actually incorrect. Very, very difficult to convince that person to shift their points of view. So I'm not sure what the immediate response is, but I can tell you that if we don't shore up our education system over a long period of time, we're going to continue to have these problems. So.
Not to be too kind of preachy about it, but one of the things, the problem that I see about it right now is, and Stephen was, I think, pointed this out, is we need to have conversations, but it's hard to get them into the room. And unfortunately, I think one of the reasons why they are hard to get into the room is comments like they're on the peak of Mount Stupid. I think they're because of so much ridicule and because of so much name calling, they have now galvanized to a point of view. And unfortunately, I think that that is across the board with COVID, vaccinations. We have people on the left who basically say, if you don't get vaccinated, you deserve to die. And like, what the fuck?
Okay. I'm going to jump in here because I did say on a stream recently that, and my point was this, right? My point was this. It wasn't that I believe that people deserve to die. I just think that if you have, right, my granddad, I was very close to my granddad, and my granddad always taught me that a principle is only a principle if you're willing to stick to it. So my argument was that if they are not going to trust in doctors to administer a life-saving vaccine, that when you get, and you will get it, but when you get the Larger-Lurgy, as we call it, that you shouldn't have access to the same doctors who have been trying to save your life, especially over people like what I saw on some of the shorts recently, people with heart conditions not being able to get treatment, people with cancer who are not able to get treatment because these assholes are taking up ICU beds and living in corridors because they refuse to go home now that they have it. No, if you've refused the vaccine and you actually get sick, then live with your fucking principles and die with them. That's my argument.
I think that it goes to accepting consequences.
Exactly.
I mean, I want to push back.
I kind of want to.
Let me just say one thing. Just last.
But I'm a bitch. I'm a bitch. I'm okay.
Okay.
Let me say one thing, Jefferson. It'll be like 20 seconds. Is that I don't agree with the fact that like I think what Stephen was saying, like I don't agree that all opinions are equal. Like I can have an opinion that the earth is flat and somebody else can have the opinion that the earth is round. It's not like both opinions are legitimate and we can have a legitimate discussion around that. Some opinions are just factually incorrect and I refuse to actually have a debate on that topic. So if somebody's like on Mount Stupid, and I'll just say that, and they have an opinion that, QAnon exists or like the earth is flat, I'm not going to say, you know what? I'm going to respect your opinion. Let's have an objective view. Let's have an objective discussion on that. I just have a problem with that. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's my view. And you can talk, Jefferson.
Jeff is out in the fucking race course at the moment.
Yeah.
Somebody just zipped by on a very loud motorcycle. Yeah. This is kind of in between the point that Jason and Rob, is it Rob or Bob?
Rob.
Rob, that you guys made earlier about the education thing. And then I got to go because I'm getting paged for help. I don't know what's going on, but it's not it's not related to the motorcycle. I was watching this. I saw a clip of a reporter that was interviewing a voter following the Virginia election. You know, Glenn Young winning.
I think I know the clip that you're about to talk about.
So yeah, so as a younger woman, I don't know if it was CNN or MSNBC, but she's interviewing this voter. The voter's probably between my age and maybe like her mid-50s, you know, so give or take 10 years. She's being asked like what she voted on. She says education, and then the thing that she was concerned about was that they're trying to indoctrinate kids into basically, especially the white kids, into hating white people or at least feeling bad about being white. Yeah. And so the reporter asked this woman, well, what evidence do you have? Like, what makes you think that that's actually what's happening? And the woman points this out, and I thought it was really telling. She's like, well, if my kid's in a classroom, you got kids in a classroom, and the teacher's trying to teach them a lesson about President Andrew Jackson and the way he treated Native Americans, specifically the Seminoles, there's no way that you can tell these kids that because he behaved badly that way, that they're not going to just assume that all white people they're not going to assume that all white people are bad. And she just said this with so much seriousness. I'm like, okay, so, and then there's been this thing that's happened on the right for a long time where if somebody tries to needle and criticize somebody like, say, Martin Luther King Jr. for his infidelity, they'll bring that up and they're like, oh, I'm not trying to generalize all Black Americans. I'm just saying Martin Luther King Jr. had a faithfulness problem when it came to his wife. This is a woman who basically is like, has basically said the quiet part out loud that's been buried for years. She's like, no. When you criticize a white person, you criticize all white people.
Yeah.
Like she lacked that much critical thinking and assumed that lack of critical thinking is just universal across school kids. I was like, okay, so I agree with Jason and Rob. Education is really important. In her case, I don't know if it's fixable.
But it's also a point that people take political arguments personally. Like when I got into politics, I was about 15, 16. And it was completely different to what it is now. Because when someone would argue with you politically, you didn't take it personally. Now what I see is a lot of people it's not outrage, it's not simply outrage, it's ultra defensiveness because of the polarization of left and right, that even for me to say I'm somewhat in the center, I'm center left, for me to use the center outrages my left-wing friends, and for me to say I'm left outrages my centrist friends.
I'm not outraged. I was just curious. What do you
No. In my own life.
Yeah, to be fair,
in my real
Stephen
life.
was outraged. It was Stephen who was. Sorry,
Stephen is.
You know what? I'll even go further.
Raging.
I'll even go further and say that America has kind of devolved into this short attention span of memes. You know.
Yeah.
And Trump is a meme. The Republican side, the right wing side, is a meme. It's instant gratification. It's literally the WWE. It's the wrestling, you know.
The spectacle.
It's a spectacle, and sometimes that is more valid in the public's eye, especially in America, on the right, than the left is. The left just does not recognize the fact that the generation of fake wrestling is the voting power in some cases.
This is what we were saying earlier, but this is what we were saying earlier, because of social media and because of the world that we live in today is full of convenience and instant gratification, as you said, Soldier. People don't understand what it is to wait. They don't understand patience. And so they can't see another side when everything is here and now. They can't see 4 years in the future, 5 years in the future. They can only see now, and they want it now. And so when they don't get it now, they're left thinking, why the hell have everything else around me I can have instantaneously as soon as I snap my fingers? Why can't it be like that for the economy? Why can't it be like that for education? Why can't it be like that in politics? They don't understand the long game anymore.
No, absolutely. And there's an underlying fear from the left and the right of the fact that the right really thinks that the left is going beyond political correctness to the point that we I don't want to say we because I'm an independent, but that the left is going too far to the respect that we can now use Twitter and we can now use Facebook to vilify someone and fire them from their jobs.
Yep.
Even if it's a momentary lapse of reasoning, if you will, even if it's not a momentary lapse of reasoning and you're really great at your job, but you fucked up and said something on video that then gets you literally fired to where you can't support your family. The right hates that, and I don't blame them for that. I honestly don't. I don't blame them.
Well, I mean, both sides are guilty of this. Both sides are guilty of this. And I hate saying sides. I really hate it.
Yeah.
Because it's a spectrum.
At this point it is.
It's not. Well, yes and no, but it's yeah, like you said, Twitter has opened up this new facility, in people's brains where they don't need a filter. And the idea of trolling, that you can be anyone who you want to be and there is no consequence. And this is the big thing. The idea for so long, because of social media, because of YouTube, because of they weren't taking that responsibility seriously. They weren't actually taking into account what speech was on their platforms, and now that they are, and now that there's consequences, people don't know how to react. They don't know how to understand it.
Not even don't know how to react, but probably don't even trust it. I mean,
they don't have filters anymore.
I'm a 50-year-old guy. I'll be 51 in February. And when I was a kid in the 70s, you had 3 major broadcast channels, which you could say is good or bad, but there was more policing on the fact that there was only 3 news channels. And so the truth out of those channels probably had to be more valid than the fact that you now have thousands of media channels that you can go online and watch YouTube about. And the left maybe strives to do that, but the right focuses on only confirmation bias and what they want to hear. And that's Fox and OAN and Newsmax, unfortunately.
I just want to
same from the left.
I want to give just like to balance this cancel culture topic. I know a lot of people are like, they hate this concept, but remember, just like you're saying, Soldier, we go back in time, that given that there wasn't so much information available, that many people could have activities that nobody ever knew about. They could be racist and sexist, and do abhorrent things, and because there wasn't the capability of communicating that information, they could get away with it. And so now we're in an age where it's very difficult to get away with something. If you do something inappropriate, somebody's going to find out about it. Now, I agree, this has shifted to the far other end, where there are individuals that do certain things and they get canceled when maybe that's actually inappropriate. Like their actions weren't so horrible, or it was a long time ago and they've apologized for it and they still get canceled. I agree, that's bad. But there's a part of me that's like, you know what? Some people deserve to get canceled. Some people do things that everybody should know about, and if everybody knows about it and those people find that to be unacceptable, they have a right to say, you know what you did was inappropriate, and I'm not going to go to your company. I'm not going to buy shit from your company, or I'm not going to, I'm not going to vote for you. So I think those things are appropriate, but I do think, we're kind of in an age now where like things go to the nth degree. And,
I mean, it's literally what the right is afraid of, right? Is their privacy being taken over by a government or a system. And you see this with China, right? Which is, trying to implement 5G in a lot of different third world countries. No, I know you're laughing at this, but
no, it's in the chat if you want to bitch about politics.
No. It's a matter of fact that governments are trying to control, 5G and cameras in cities where they can literally spot crimes as they're happening in real time. Is that a bad thing, or is that a good thing? And along with this comes lack of privacy. So that's what we're faced as in America. Do I want more invasion in my privacy? I'm not doing anything wrong, so go for it. Versus, hey, maybe I don't want this government entity to be looking at me in the cameras in the streets, or people all around me videotaping me. It's just a worthy argument, is all I'm saying.
I mean, it gets. I mean, I think this is a good point. I think what Crafty was saying about the world of social media now, like we have a like a tribalistic. We've created structures that allow for like for us to to formulate ourselves into our own little tribes where we it's an echo chamber. It's reinforcing our viewpoints, and the aspects of cognitive dissonance are rampant. So somebody's like, I have a viewpoint, but I've surrounded myself through social media, et cetera, with only people that are saying this, and I have to reconcile my views in my own brain, and I'm having cognitive dissonance with regards to like what all my peers are saying. They're saying QAnon is real, QAnon is real, QAnon is real, but part of me is like, wait a second, this doesn't seem right. I'm like, what do I do? And oftentimes people side with their peers. They're like, everybody here is saying QAnon is real, so you know what? I'm convinced QAnon is real. That is a product of social media, and it's a real problem. I don't know what the answer is, but the social media topic is a concern. I don't know how to deal with it.
I think it becomes a society. People want a common society. They want a common group of folks that think like they do because it makes them feel better.
Sure. But if we have these mechanisms that are like, you know what, I'm a white supremacist, and I live in some place, and I never get to talk to anybody that are white supremacists. But guess what? Now I can go on the internet, and I can tap into the thousands and thousands of other people that are white supremacists. I'm like, damn, I feel like I'm part of a team. It reinforces those viewpoints. I understand that can be a positive value, but it has negative consequences to our society as well.
To lead into that, you see, when Biden first gets elected, he has like high approval rating amongst the left, and now you have this intermediate and meme again of this "Let's Go Brandon" thing, which is actually taking over, football stadiums and sports. And what it is the social structure is peer pressuring the people around them to be like, this president isn't really a great president because "Let's Go Brandon" means "fuck you, Biden."
Does it?
That's what it means. That's what it means. Is it means "fuck you, Biden," and I see it on Facebook now. I see these memes going on, and it becomes more trendy to hate Biden now. Even if you're not on the right, because you see this type of memeing going on, and it's really a reluctance of people to not pay attention to what is actually going on in politics and pay attention more to memes. And it's scary. It's super scary.
I mean, I'm on the left, and I have to say that I'm disappointed with Biden for I'm disappointed with the Democrat Party for a couple of reasons, and one of them is the absolute shit show that was Afghanistan pulling out. I mean, yes, it was Trump who initiated the withdrawal, but the fact that we didn't even take care of those people who are going to effectively get killed by the Taliban is abhorrent. And the other thing is the Progressive Party. We needed infrastructure. We needed that infrastructure bill, but to hold it hostage for a social safety net, is just bad politics. I agree with both bills, but to hold one hostage is ridiculous, particularly because the Republicans will support one and not the other.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably give you a dissertation on Afghanistan. In all honesty, that was honestly a shit show. It was Trump giving the deadline date, but Biden, against many generals, failed to have a really good backup plan with that. I mean,
let's step back and just look at the broad picture. I voted for Biden. I don't think Biden was a great option. I think that he's very similar to Hillary Clinton. We have the Democrats are like, we need to get Trump out of there. We need a moderate white guy that can get the votes. And now we're kind of having to pay the price for that, where, people are like, Biden's kind of milquetoast. He's really old. He's a middle of the road white guy. Yes, he picked Kamala Harris. That's great.
And she's probably at the last of the list in everybody's mind.
I think we're going to be in trouble in 2022 and
big time.
2024.
Big
and
time.
so, so I would agree with you. There are all these policy issues that you could be like Afghanistan or other topics that are a problem. But in general, I think it's getting set up to be where Trump or a Trump associate is going to run for the presidency.
How do we get to a point where a president was impeached 2 fucking times and maybe reelected?
Is also under investigation.
2 fucking times, folks.
He's under investigation for fraud and sexual assault. I mean,
and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Both of those times, rightfully so. Like, how do you fucking bribe the country of Ukraine and be like, you know what? I need you to look into this political opponent of mine and declare a case. Come on. Or I'm not going to send you this money. Hello.
I'm going to let you rot in Russian jails. I mean,
it's fucking ridiculous.
There is a question there in the chat from Taddy who asks, does a two-party system encourage an us versus them mentality in the electorate? So what do people think?
Absolutely. But,
sure.
But you can also look at there's an argument against that, and you can look at the Europeans where there's multiple parties, and if there's 10 parties and someone gets 3% or 10% of the vote versus the other 9, were they really the favorite, and were they really the best candidate because of those parties? So there's the argument against that, of course.
We have a huge problem in the United States with the two-party system. I mean, it's that they've got. I mean, Democrats and Republicans. Like, I don't really like the platforms of either of them. They both have corrupt aspects to them. They've got a lock on the system, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, what is it? It's called first to the post. Like, that's definitely a problem. Like, a third party candidate or it's almost impossible for third parties to get traction here, and that's exactly what both Democrats and Republicans want. They want this battle out between two very similar. I don't want to say similar, but two options that are both in the pocket.
No, you're right.
It's similar.
It's similar in the respect that it's just politicians funding corporations. And so then ultimately it's like, on the left, do we fund like new green deals, and on the right, do we fund like old fossil fuel, I mean, it ultimately it's you deciding who you want to fund as far as corporations. Is it the NRA? Yeah, I have this, feel in my bones that I want to protect the Second Amendment, and so therefore my guns are an important topic for me. So is abortion rights. Boom, automatically, I'm voting for whoever is on the right. Automatically, those two things alone. That's it.
I mean, I could launch into a thing about how politics is set up to be A versus B, because like even the makeup of most chambers is one section over here and another section over the other side of the room, which goes to show adversaries. So the idea of the two-party systems, I'll give you an example. Over here we have a lot more than just two parties, and some of the smaller parties now are kind of moving on up, but at the moment, or up until the last election in Ireland, we had Fine Gael versus Fianna Fáil. Fine Gael was originated from the blue shirts, from the fascists of the 1930s, and the large business owners, the large farmers. Fianna Fáil was the other side of that, where it was the kind of middle businesses and small businesses and the family farms, but still, kind of seen as center right, by American standards anyway.
Sure.
So it was basically A versus B for a very long time, and then you had the rise of the Labour Party. What happened with the Labour Party, which was seen as centre left, was they went into government with one of these larger parties and were given all of the departments to cut. social protections and social services. So they were decimated. During the bust, you had the Green Party, who voted for the bailout, and it was seen they lost like nearly half their membership at that point because of what was happening with Labour. Everyone that was disenfranchised from the Greens went to Labour, and then they went back to the Greens. So the Greens ended up back in again. But what ended up happening was, in the rise of, or in the fall of the Labour Party, you've seen an ultra kind of nationalist party. Now, when I say nationalist, nationalism didn't form in the same way that it did in the States. It's seen as left wing. It's right, but it's seen as left wing, and it uses left wing rhetoric.
But was
So
was that formed out of the fact that there was migrants coming into Europe?
No. It was against colonialism. It was against any discussion with the British at all. It was because we were basically split in two. As a country, we have the Republic of Ireland and we have Northern Ireland.
Right.
Now, most people don't realise that Sinn Féin, who I'm about to speak about, were the people involved in splitting the fucking country in the first place. But all of a sudden, they had a huge upsurge in support for the first time in nearly 100 years since the country split.
Interesting.
And what happened was the two big right-wing parties all but merged. And so now you have a situation where it's not right versus right in the parliament anymore, it's right versus left, or what's seen as left. You have Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil on the same bench for the first time in 100 years. That old Civil War bullshit.
Interesting. Yes, my friends in America, we are on the brink of a civil war, and we forget that Ireland almost had one because they're either Catholic or fucking Protestant.
Hang on, no. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, there was an interesting word in that sentence that you had there, which was almost.
Yeah, I know.
Almost twice.
Sorry, guys.
I mean, Math Pig is right there in the chat. You want to say almost had a civil war?
Almost. Sorry, folks. I'm just saying, as Americans, we look at a civil war as
You fucking talk to Math Pig and his parents who were around in the Troubles, and you tell him that was almost a civil war.
Almost a civil war.
For sure.
Sorry. It got close to one, but wasn't really.
I take it back.
Damn it. I was not going to let that one go. Plus, in the invention of Ireland, of the Republic, just before the Republic, we had the Irish Free State, which, during the Irish Free State, there was full-blown civil war. Yeah. This is where Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael came out of.
That's why U2's my favorite band.
Fuck off. No.
I'm going to give another about 5 minutes to this topic, and then we're going to move on to the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
Oh, yeah. So. What were we talking about again?
Well, politics in general, although it started off being about QAnon. So we've...
yeah, we got bored of QAnon very early on.
Yeah. We've kind of... we've drifted somewhat.
This happens.
It does.
Yeah, it was really a product of us trying to analyze how, most of America, at least, I don't know if Europe is the same way, we're failing because we do not know which media to choose to believe in, and therefore form opinions on our confirmation bias. Because they're readily available, because things like Facebook and YouTube puts it right in front of our face, right? They have they have great algorithms to put that QAnon shit right in front of my face, so I can...
And again, it's the suggested content. It's from what you have seen, and this is the danger of these companies having this power, that they filter everything you see. So you don't get to see the other side. It's done purposely for the sake of
it's a parent algorithm, right?
Yeah.
It's like your parent telling you, here's the things that I need you to see. And it's an algorithm, it's an AI intelligence that says, here's the next thing that you should see because you saw this last thing.
Yeah.
And that's corrupt. It's absolutely corrupt. I mean, obviously, it's great for marketing. It's great for money. It's great for a company that says, I want to know what you want to see next, and therefore I'm going to show it to you. But if it's misinformation, holy crap, it's doing damage throughout the world, folks. It is. That's how you have someone like Trump get elected in America. Period. Like, we no longer care about a smart president. We no longer care about a president who knows about foreign politics. We no longer care about a president who actually goes to meetings and talks with his CIA instead of denies his CIA, or his FBI or his military leaders. We don't have that in America anymore. We have people who follow Kim Kardashian and they vote for Trump. That's what we have. And it's super scary. If memes can control the free world, your economies, your strongest military, and control policy throughout the world because of memes, we are in a shit show, folks, especially on the left. I'll tell you that right now. We're fucked. We are fucked. Because the left doesn't have a business plan to get out of this situation at all. I definitely predict that Trump will, if he runs, he'll be reelected. He's pretty old, so I mean, he could die before then, but maybe not.
Can I just say hello to Stephen Cooper Reason, who just came into the chat?
And obviously hello to Knock as well, who has just joined us.
Hi, Knock.
Hey y'all. Yeah, I decided to join. I'm on my meds, but I should be okay. And you guys are friends, so I don't think I'm in any trouble.
Yeah.
I'll be going to bed soon because it's like 12:30 for me.
Yeah, I was just going to say
I have a show in like 11 hours.
Yeah.
With Reason.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm not getting tired or anything, but it is kind of getting on a little bit, and I do have to be up for work. So, yes,
you have work.
Just kind of, yeah, I know, unfortunately. So as we have not new person and stuff like that, and we kind of
change the subject.
Pretty much said all that we can say on the last one. Yeah, the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse is... Oh, yeah. Has it been 2 weeks, or is it in its second week of the trial?
I think it's in its second week, but it's supposed to... I think it's closing arguments on Monday, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I mean, this... Oh, man. Again, I could do a dissertation on this because
I have so much to say about this.
This is very similar to the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case.
Yes,
and I'll give you the backwards point of view. So if you followed the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case, where George Zimmerman was in a truck, he suspected Trayvon Martin of robbing. And he got out of his truck. He didn't say anything like, I'm a community guard or whatever they call those people. And he basically ran after Trayvon Martin and then caught up with him, lost him. And then if you watch the trial, it says that Trayvon Martin probably punched him first. And then George Zimmerman pulled out a gun and shot him. So I'm going to go last to first. Trayvon Martin never knew that guy was a community service fucking guy. For all he knew, he was a Mexican who came out of his truck, chased him, and shot him.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I'll say the same thing about the people who Kyle Rittenhouse shot. Outside of the first guy, the other two people he shot would have just thought that this freaking dude running through the crowd was an active shooter.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, period. Put yourself in the point of view of the people he shot. He was an active shooter that was running through the crowd because he was not wearing a uniform. He was not part of a police force, and so this really gets into the psyche of guns in America, and even more the background story of, once you do go to trial, I can put my defendant in a position to look like he had good intentions.
Fucking vigilanteism, yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, we fail to prosecute recklessness. We fail to prosecute stupidity and lack of street smarts. Like, you don't go, I grew up in Los Angeles, in California. You don't fucking wear a KKK uniform and walk down Compton yelling, fuck you and fuck you and fuck you and then when you get killed or when you get shot out, claim self-defense. That is this case. That's the George Zimmerman case. That's this case. It's I failed to recognize that me walking with an AR-15 in the middle of a riot situation would probably bring assault on my body if I'm alone, and therefore be afraid that my gun is going to be taken away from me, and therefore I might need to kill someone when that happens. Exact same as George Zimmerman. Got punched in the face, afraid his gun was going to get taken away from him. In my mind, Trayvon Martin was probably like, dude, this guy is coming to rob me. He's got a gun on him. I better either run or punch him in the face. Period. It is a failure for us to prosecute reckless actions. Kyle Rittenhouse, a reckless action. It's a reckless action, period. That's my rant.
Well, I just want to bring up the fact that Schroeder, the judge in the case, on Thursday came out with the most disgusting racist rant in the courthouse about how he hopes that the Asian food isn't coming on one of the boats that is stuck off the West Coast. Like, in the courtroom, first of all, that is so inappropriate to actually say during this during a court anyway is inappropriate, but during this specific one is just like,
you
wow.
You apparently didn't see the jury selection, did you?
I did. I did.
Watch a jury selection?
Yeah.
Where he like identified someone that he knows and gave her an opportunity to stay on the jury?
Yeah, but again, I mean, that's bad enough. But again, let's remember, this is a sitting judge in the middle of a huge internationally watched trial saying racist shit on the stand. The fucking stand.
I mean, overseeing a courtroom that's overlooking a very racially tense trial, and if you mix that with Ahmaud Arbery and what's going on over there, I think America is sitting, like, we are on the dynamite right now, and this shit is about to explode worse than ever before, because if both of these people get off, what are we saying to the minorities of this country? We're saying that we can just kill you now. Like, I've often said, you know, if Rittenhouse gets off, then the precedent is set. I, as a left person, can go to any neo-Nazi rally with a weapon of war and claim self-defense as I murder them.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, Rittenhouse will get off. And I'll tell you why Rittenhouse will get off. Because our laws prosecute laws as they go. So what are the laws that we can prosecute Kyle on? The fact that he had an illegal weapon, the fact that he went over state lines with to get an illegal weapon. Those have limited amounts of prosecution. But when it comes to, well, I was actually there with that weapon, and now people are attacking me. And if you watch the actual trial, Joseph Rosenbaum was pretty stupid to chase a dude with a weapon. That happened, and he got shot for it. But what happens after that is that Kyle is forced to shoot two other people who probably thought he was an active shooter. And so ultimately you go, well, I got to put myself in Kyle's mind. People are chasing me. They're about to hit me with a skateboard, and one dude has a gun. Probably got to shoot him now that I do have my gun. And so for the prosecution, what you have to prove in this case is the reckless idea to take your gun into a situation where you know you're going to have to use it to defend yourself. And I think we have a failure to be able to do that in America. We don't have that ability. If that was the case, George Zimmerman would have gone to jail. Hear me now.
Let's just go back really quickly. Even to the start of this year, I think it was this year, or was it last February, where McMichael and Bryan trial in Georgia, where a father and son brutally kicked, chased, and basically beat the shit out of a black man, a 25-year-old black man that was out on a jog in the mid-morning, saying that they thought he was attempting to flee a burglary just because he was out jogging.
Yeah.
And they got
the
off.
Arbery. Not Arbery. Okay, but
yeah,
I mean,
Arbery.
Okay, so this also brings up Arbery, which would be interesting to me because, where I think that Kyle Rittenhouse will get off, I don't think the attackers of George Arbery will get off, and this is interesting because if you watch that video, even though these white freaking rednecks in Georgia are chasing George Arbery, you see at the last second George Arbery actually attacks the white guy with the shotgun. And again, like I said with Trayvon Martin, and me, who grew up in Los Angeles around a lot of gangs and got in a lot of fights when I was a kid, you have a fight or flight reaction.
Yeah.
That's it. And in a situation where you think someone has a gun, your flight reaction, not so great. You have a few seconds to get shot in that flight reaction.
In the back, yeah.
Yeah. So the fight reaction, if you're close, becomes number one.
For me, it's a no-brainer. If somebody's pointing a gun at me, I am attacking that person.
That's it.
Yeah.
So your fight reaction, and people who have never been in a fight, people who didn't grow up in freaking bad places like me in Los Angeles, do not know this fact. Fight or flight is based on your strategy of whether you're going to survive. And sometimes if someone that you feel has a gun who's attacking you is up close, you're going to fucking sock them first. And then if you get killed for it, you get killed because you socked them first, you're at fault in America.
Mm.
And it's so messed up.
And that's where we're at. That is basically where we're at. Like someone with a gun in a state that can own a gun can basically provoke you. And
are they still treating Rittenhouse as a minor? Because I didn't.
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know.
Because I know
think so.
he was 17 when it happened. I think.
Yeah, he was 17.
Well, even he understood that about responding with violence when someone points a gun at you. Rittenhouse expressed that he understood that response, that natural response, when he was talking about what was it, Rosenbaum pointing the gun at him. He said, he was dangerous. He said that in the cross-examination. He understands that. He just wants to have special circumstances for himself.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Hear me now. I think Kyle gets off. I don't think the killers of Arbery gets off because of the fact that ultimately they have it on video of them, like, these dudes are just chasing after him with guns, and so Arbery's almost forced to, like, in his mind, he's like forced to, like, I better do something before I get shot,
Well, yeah. I think Rittenhouse will probably get off, but I think that I think the prosecutor was trying to throw the trial for a mistrial because the prosecutor and hopefully the rest
the defense.
Well, no, the prosecutor. I think the prosecutor was trying to throw the trial.
You think?
Because they were losing, and from the very beginning, the judge showed bias from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So, and the judge has shown bias through the entire trial. So I think the prosecutor, especially when he started to bring up stuff that had already been, the judge had already ruled out, was deliberately trying to cause a mistrial so it could be retried.
I think that's
I think that this will be retried. I think it will be.
I kind of agree with you there. Like, I mean, you saw. I mean, when I first saw that on the prosecution side of
a good prosecutor doesn't do that.
Doesn't do that. You don't like go beyond what the judge already said is which if you watch it, a lot of bullshit that the judge didn't allow. Like, come on, you're gonna disallow the people who got shot to be called victims.
But you're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna allow
you're
the
gonna allow
BLM
them to be
activists to
called
be called rioters,
rioters.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a judge who's when his phone rang, had the freaking "I'm proud to be an American"
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
on
God,
his
it was
on his phone.
Cringe.
This is a Trump supporter.
You know they
Without
had
a
us sing
doubt.
that song in school. I hate that song.
You know, and they keep bringing up like he was appointed by or he was elected and he
He's a Trump
ran
supporter.
on a moderate platform, but like that he's the longest serving Wisconsin judge in the state. Trumpism is new and it has brought in a lot of people. So what he was before matters not in the scope of the last 3 years. Matters not a thing.
No, and he's someone who's smart enough to recognize the media attention on him, and if you watch the trial, he takes advantage of it. He definitely does. He's definitely like, don't mess with me. I'm gonna, interrupting the attorneys to be like, hey, is the temperature in here cold enough for everybody? Like, come on.
Yeah.
And
It
I
just
just
goes
want
to
to
show how
ask,
seriously he takes it.
like Ahmaud Arbery, that trial it has one black juror. The Rittenhouse has one black juror. Like, can we at least get some diversity on these juries? Because it does not.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah, in
What?
Wisconsin, probably not for sure.
Georgia, yeah, you should. But I mean, there's an article that came out that they said that it's probably discrimination against picks of the jurors in the Arbery case.
Well, with this, I'm going to have to jump off because it's getting late. So, Stephen, thank you for having me on. See you
No
later,
problem,
lads.
Keela. Talk to you again.
I'll be
All right,
listening.
so before you leave, Crafty, the last thing I'll say is a bunch of people have commented and said that Tom Rabbit recently posted some something I talked with Darth Dawkins about, some interview. That was like
you're famous now.
That was months ago. It was months ago. And so, yeah, if you have comments on that negative wise, I didn't know who Darth Dawkins was when it was like Nephilim Freeze channel. And
My first interaction with Darth, I had no idea who he was.
I
He
didn't know
got
who
me
he was.
so good. He got me so good.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Darth
No,
Dawkins
he.
is a
I
miserable
wouldn't
piece
say.
of shit.
I wouldn't say he got me good. I would just say he didn't let me talk.
Oh, he destroyed
never
me
does.
without a doubt. I denied the what was it? I denied like the second law of logic or something like that. Like it was insane.
Yeah. So. If you
I'll
watch,
definitely look into it. Can you send me the link to that?
it's
Or
on
have
Tom
it-
Rabbit. It's on Tom Rabbit's. It's like
Okay.
his last video.
Right.
Dude,
I'll check that out. I'll check that
I
out.
was-
I'll get back to you.
I was so proud the first time that Tom Rabbit covered me and Darth. I was like, I made it. I made it now.
I know. I just commented. I said, "Where's my fucking T-shirt, dude?"
Yeah.
So thanks,
Well,
guys,
I-
for letting me join. I'm gonna sign off too.
No
I'm
problem,
gonna
dude.
jump off because again, I have
Yeah.
at 11:30 my time tomorrow. I have a show. So
Always a pleasure, Crafty. Good
Good
talking to you.
you again, Crafty. It's been
later.
a while. It's been a while.
bye.
Y'all have a good one.
Have you guys seen what Candace Owens has been tweeting about the Rittenhouse situation?
No, I haven't. I used to follow her every tweet because I've despised her since she was Red Pill Black. But I've made it like this issue that I unfollowed her on Twitter. It's toxic for me.
I mean, look, it is definitely pretty fucking toxic.
She's a leftist. I mean, she's the biggest like if you open up the dictionary and get a definition of grifter, it's gonna have Candace Owens smiling her biggest smile,
But I mean, she put out this tweet, right, where she was like, I hope Kyle Rittenhouse spends the rest of his life suing every politician, business, individual and media network who smeared him as a white supremacist murderer. I genuinely hope he never stops collecting checks from these monsters. He was an innocent kid, right? And someone tweeted down here below, he said he still is. And Candace Owens tweeted back and said, nah, he isn't a kid. They stole the innocence out of his youth from him ruthlessly. and you don't come through something like this unchanged. I hope he sues them into oblivion. And it's like, okay, I know what you're saying, right? I don't agree with what you're saying, obviously, but I know what you're saying. But he illegally obtained a weapon, which he then illegally crossed state lines with. He went to a situation where he knew the tensions were going to be high. Yeah. He was open carrying. He was openly provoking people. But Candace Owens still thinks that he was an innocent kid. Now, I don't care that he was 17. He knew exactly what the fuck he was doing. He got a gun for it before it was going to happen. He knew all of this was going to happen. He intentionally, he had every opportunity to back out from what he was doing at several intervals, not just before, but also that day. The idea that he was just some innocent kid, I don't.
It's you don't go to a Black Lives Matter riot, which it's going to turn into a riot, and it's usually not the Black Lives Matter activist doing that violence. It's usually people from the outside coming in trying to do damage to the reputation of the Black Lives Matter activists. Not all the time. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, the adrenaline. I've been in several protest and just I've been an activist forever. The adrenaline will pump through you, and you will oftentimes do stuff that you wouldn't normally do in that situation. But most times, a lot of the times, and the FBI has backed this up with arrest when it came to those Black Lives Matter incidents a couple summers ago, that it's right-wing terrorists infiltrating and trying to start stuff to give Black Lives Matter a bad name. But you don't go to that time. All right, so for one, when right-wing activists say, I'm going to protect personal property, in every civil rights dispute we've ever had, in every protest throughout the history of mankind, when we have protested atrocity, when we have protested the government, shit gets a little fucked up. That's just what happens when a lot of people come together and they're all there for the same reason. Nothing's going to be pristine afterwards. So you're literally saying, I'm not going to allow you to practice your God-given rights, and I use God-given as an adjective there. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to allow you to practice the rights attributed to you in the Constitution, and I'm going to use this to protect private property. You do not go to that situation with a weapon of war and not intend to use that weapon of war, especially if you're not supposed to have that weapon of war. Wisconsin law states that if you are in perpetuation of a crime, self-defense cannot be a defense. Just having that weapon alone is a crime in Wisconsin for Kyle Rittenhouse. So this whole self-defense thing should be mute. He's going to get off. Without a doubt, he's going to get off, I think. And it's kind of sad because this whole thing that Candace is saying right here is, we didn't call him a white supremacist until he started going and hanging out with the white supremacists. Yeah. Until he got out of jail and he started hanging out with these people and accepting this fame placed upon him, because unfortunately a good chunk of America see him as a hero because, they won't say that he killed black people. One of the dudes at least was white, but they will say, he killed liberals. He killed liberals, so he's a hero now.
Weren't all of them white?
I think all of them might have been white. I mean, if you go to a Black Lives protest, especially 2 summers ago, a lot of your activists there were white folk. They were white folk, and most of them were on the side of Black Lives Matter. Some few were, neo-nationalists trying to get in and start stuff, because that's a classic strategy.
I keep seeing these all these tweets and stuff. People are saying, this whole time they tried to tell us that he killed black people, that he was shooting black people, and I never got that impression. Nope. It was, I didn't even consider that.
I think Rosenbaum was mixed, wasn't he? I think he was like a mixed dude.
I'm not completely sure on the ethnicity of the people, but I'm just saying that I never was like, he killed a bunch of black people. I was like, he killed people. Protesters.
Yeah, he killed people.
or maybe they were rioters. I know that, like you said, the rioters come out when the protest is in town. It's the best time to go out and cause mayhem. So anybody who has that inclination will take advantage.
Well, yeah, especially when it's racially charged. So when you have very high tensions, this was over like George Floyd. This was like the reaction of the George Floyd death when we had that summer of what conservatives will call riots, and most of them were actually peaceful protests that had no violence at all. Like most of them, but they focused on the few that did, which is fine because call it what it was. But you have to understand the nuances that goes along in this activism. If you've ever worked for the Democratic Party or if you've ever worked for the Republican Party on the local level, you understand like the things that you do to each other. You will infiltrate the other group. You will try to cause disdain. Like you will actively send spies into the other group just to cause trouble. Right? Like these are classic strategies that activists on both sides utilize and will continue to utilize until one side wins, because it's just how it goes. Anybody that's been an activist would tell you that, like, these things happen in the heat of the moment. Shit happens, and sometimes you're going to do stuff that you would never have done in a million years, but most times you're there for a cause and you're able to rally around that cause. And most of the trouble that does end up popping up is from those outside infiltrators trying to utilize the adrenaline of the situation to their advantage.
Yeah, look, yeah. All of that is true. I guess it was just kind of presumed that he did kill black people that was there because it was at a BLM protest. But I mean, like, then again, like isn't like the vast majority, like, purely just because of like the numbers of people in these like groups, but wasn't it like mainly white people who are like in support of BLM or like is a part of BLM? You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like a majority.
The organization used to there was some issues with allyship, who is an ally, who should be an ally. The organization used to be primarily black. I do think that the dynamics changed in that summer, because ultimately, with all of these civil rights things that go along, allies are the most important thing. And definitely during that summer, a good chunk of the people that were on the streets were white folk, without a doubt.
Yeah. No, it's just kind of peculiar then that like people would just kind of assumed that like, no, he killed white people, that's why we were calling him a white supremacist. It's like, no, we were calling him white supremacist because he was hanging out with like favoriting, forwarding, and then in general agreeing with white supremacists. That's why we called him one. It's
doing photo shoots with the white supremacists.
Yeah.
Showing the white power sign. Like,
exactly.
Come on,
exactly.
dude. Like,
it's like, yeah.
But they ignore all that. They ignore all that because he's just an innocent little kid.
Yeah. Who knew exactly what the fuck he was doing? And
somebody brought up a good point. Like, how has the mother not been charged? She drove drove
him
across straight lines, gave him a weapon of war, put him in that situation. Like, how is this woman not charged with anything at all? I don't understand it.
Yeah. It was definitely something that I was kind of wanting to say, was that like this isn't getting talked about enough, about how like just a terrible mother she was. Like, I'm sorry, I know that I'm not in like much of a position to kind of like judge parenting styles, but you, just the exact same as Kyle, you knew exactly what he was there for. You knew exactly what he was probably going to do, like, and you still drove him there. Like, she 100% holds some of the blame here. There was one other tweet that Candace put out. The kind of people who thought that O.J. Simpson was innocent are the same people who believe that Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty. Facts don't matter to emotionally indoctrinated zombies, only feelings do. Now, I did tweet a reply to that, which is the overlapping area in a Venn diagram of the people who simultaneously think that O.J. Simpson was innocent and think that Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty is somehow smaller than her IQ. But which is like it's just seriously why would that be your go-to example, like, of people who thought that OJ was innocent, and it's such a massive overlap with the people who think that Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty. It's like,
I think OJ was guilty as fuck.
Yes,
and I think Rittenhouse is guilty.
Yes, 100%. Both of them are guilty as sin. It's ridiculous. Like, come on. Like, it's not like, I don't know, but like, just the fact that she tweeted it out, I guess it was like the confidence with which she used to like use that example. Like, is this a thing that's going around where like
I don't think the Venn diagram of the people who think that OJ was innocent and the people who think that Kyle Rittenhouse was guilty would be like a lot of overlap. I think that most people think that they were both guilty. Most people do.
Like, do people even think OJ's innocent? Like, who are these people? Because I don't know them.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe it's just because there's only like 12 people who still think that OJ was innocent, that like she somehow found all 12 of them and they all think that Kyle is guilty. It's like, I don't know. It's like, it's just such a strange example. But
it's selling a story or selling a notion about the other. It's,
you're exactly right, Bree. That's what Candace does. That's what she does. Like I said, she's a leftist. I mean, she started as a leftist. She saw where the money was, and she began that grift way back when she was Red Pill Black, and she had this series on YouTube called Life of the Coon. I shit you not, Life of the Coon.
Wow.
And it was primarily aimed at Colin Kaepernick and how awful of a human being he was, and black people need to wake the fuck up and stop voting for Democrats. It's all about the narrative and the grift. Because she knows white people are going to give an attractive black woman that's as racist as they are money. It's all a grift. It's all she was a leading activist for as a lefty before she became Red Pill Black. She was so into it, like she was creating an entire website dedicated to doxing right-wing activists. Like that that's what she initially got in trouble for, and the left attacked her, and that's her reason for turning against the left. But like, no, you're a grifter. You saw where the money was and you sold out.
Like, I don't disagree with you in any way, shape, or form, but I mean, like, I just can't possibly fathom like almost quite literally selling your soul to the devils. You know, like
we've seen it play out. Like Dave Rubin did it. Jimmy Dore is the most recent. Like Jimmy Dore is just on this anti-vax script. That's crazy. Yeah, exactly, Bree. Yeah,
but it's just like it's just like I can't even fathom the amount of money that you would have to pay me to. I mean, like, it's not 100% analogous because, you know,
I'd rather stay poor.
Because they're part of some minority, as in Dave Rubin is gay, Candace is black. Like, I don't know, to pay me to say bad things about Ireland, I guess. I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, the amount of money that you would have to give me to go against my own group of people and to constantly shit on them and to constantly say negative things about them and to constantly kind of, you know, make them out to be these like crybabying little bitches, it like is astronomical. Like you almost couldn't pay me enough. So it's just like, how, I don't know how much money they were like offered when they like first, you know, were told to kind of switch over before they kind of gained the fame that they have now, or infamy that they have now. But
I think it was that alt-right craze of YouTube. You know, like, you know, YouTube, the money is on the right, and it has been pretty much since YouTube started. And if you can get enough clicks, if you can be controversial, if you can be that edgelord, I mean, that's what Candace is going for, right? She wants, I mean, she's literally the epitome of Dave Chappelle's character on his old Chappelle show when he was the blind KKK member, right? But she's doing it with her eyes wide open, and it is disturbing, and you know, she's brilliant. She's brilliant at what she does, but it's a grift, and people can't recognize it. Like, I could scream till I'm blue in the face to my conservative friends that just love her, and like, no, she's like a liberal. She hates all of you, and they will never believe me because they fall for the grift. They just fall for it.
Yeah, like, I like just to kind of say again, like, I just can't even imagine the, like, just for the sake of money and for the sake of people knowing who the fuck you are, that you would just, like, so easily sell out your natural allies. Like, I don't know, I just can't, like, I don't know, man. I know that there's absolutely,
I don't get it.
I know that there's absolutely no money on the left, you know, if you're like kind of like into YouTube and anything else like this. Like,
no Soros checks out there.
No,
There's
absolutely
Soros ain't
no
passing out checks.
There's no money in it, but like I would, I don't know, man. I just don't know if I could be dishonest enough to be able to go out onto the various platforms that you have and lie about who you are and about what you stand for and knowingly like state falsehoods. Like, I don't know. I
thought about doing it. Like, Steven, I was thinking about like creating this fake channel with a fake avatar, and I was going to pretend to be a Christian. And I was going to see how far I could push the envelope just until people realized who I was. And I was like, well, I'd have to get some kind of like voice changer. But ultimately, I decided, like, I couldn't deceive people like that. Like, I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not, you know. And yeah, I can't understand it either. But I think that what it ultimately comes down to is people's true God is money. Like, in the modern world, it's, you know, if it's gonna secure your livelihood, I think people are willing to sell themselves out and say whatever they need to say. And I don't get it. But I think it's definitely something that some people have this ability to do. They say that if you become a super successful rich person, you have to have a bit of a sociopath in you, right? Like, you've got to be able to step on the next man's neck to get ahead. And I think that's, some people just have that, and us normal folk, it's hard for us to understand it.
Yeah, it's the one other kind of like thing that's just so apparent in business. That's it's just almost universal and almost everybody does it. But it's just something that I've just never quite understood. Like, you are knowingly kind of like stepping on someone else, as you said, or you're knowingly kind of like fucking someone else over just so you can have just that little bit of extra money in your pocket. Like, I don't. Like, is it really worth, like, is it worth it? Is it worth, you know, being the fifth most successful company versus being the sixth most successful company if you know that you're screwing so many other people over? And it's like, not even in business, but it's just like, how do you as a person knowingly do that? You know,
how can you go to sleep at night? Like, that's my
what
thing.
I'm saying. I don't know how you I don't know how they do it. I really, really, really don't. It's just,
you know, I think for us, if you've ever lived in the trenches before, and you've had to struggle at any point in your life, and you understand that struggle, to see somebody just so blatantly out of it, you know, like when Elon Musk is tweeting out that, well, man, if they make me pay my taxes, they're gonna make you pay your taxes, and the rest of us are just like, dude, we pay our fucking taxes. What are you talking about? You know, it goes to this disconnect that the haves have with the have-nots.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk is so out of touch with what it's like to be a normal person that he thinks that everybody is doing the crap that he's doing, keeping all their investments offshores and stuff like that. I can't afford to have a bank account. You know, in like the Cayman Islands or whatever. It's just not in the cards for me. I have to keep my money here to pay my bills and take care of my family.
One of the saddest facts about America is that almost 50% of us, I think the number's around 46% of Americans have less than $500 in their bank account.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But most of those people are too proud to admit it. That's what's wrong with America is they're too proud to admit, hey, we're struggling here. All of us are, and these few people have just opulence in everything.
there are people who are one medical emergency away from being in total poverty.
Yeah. If I were to lose my daughter's insurance, her life is over, and I would be destitute. I would have nothing because her insulin would take everything.
Brainbug, we should do a channel together, man. I love your talk. But I was going to say, like, I have a sister who literally works for a defense contractor, voted for Trump, and she said that she voted for Trump because she doesn't like the nation going towards socialism. So I was like, the taxpayers pay for your fucking check. You're a defense contractor. You are a socialist. And nothing to say to that. I have a cousin. He worked for the American forestry, U.S. forestry, like right out of college, like super like hippie tree hugger guy. And then 9/11 happened, and so he joined up with the SEALs, and actually at an older age than what the SEALs required, and he passed, and he became a sniper for the SEALs.
That's amazing. That's a rigorous. I mean, it's not easy to become a SEAL.
No, he was like I want to say 33.
Wow.
When he actually did that after being a forestry guy, being a tree hugger, you know, we just saw each other after probably 10 years. My sister got remarried, and we saw each other after 10 years, and he bragged to me about how he's not vaccinated, whatever. He's a survivalist guy, you know, survivalist, tree hugger, went swing way to the right, and then
a lot have.
And then about a week ago he like posted on Facebook, he was like, and his side business is he makes knives, like really professional knives, like throwing knives and all kinds of knives. But he posted a video where he was like, here's my newest knives to fight off the libtard civil war. And I was like, for a dude who's like been paid by the fucking government and taxpayers for the last fucking 30 years, bro, maybe you should rethink your thoughts.
There's this notion of like a meritocracy that we live in on the right. They're gonna say, oh, a soldier, someone who worked for the military or whatever, has given their due to the society and needs that, but they're gonna pick like someone who works in like natural resources or my family, I come from a family of conservation department people, so works for the conservation department. They don't understand that they're in the same boat, you know. You're and I'm talking about my own mother there saying that,
I mean, this is literally a SEAL, a Navy SEAL sniper who fought in Afghanistan, who is warped to the idea of Trumpism. My own cousin. It's freaking amazing.
The thing that they don't realize is we have a lot of ex-veterans on the left, and on the left, I argue more with lefties about my anti-gun stance than I do with righties. So, like when they think that they're gonna have like this civil war with the libtards, and it's just gonna be this easy cakewalk for them, they don't know what's coming. I mean, it's gonna be bloody. Everybody in America has guns.
I mean,
left, right, they all have guns.
But that's just that to me is a fanatical thought. It's a fanatical thought that exactly. That my own cousin, who was like my big brother to me growing up, would basically stereotype an entire group of people into being against him in a civil war, and you
don't hear lefties saying it. You might hear a few, but we don't say, "Oh, we need to start going and killing those fascists."
There's no one on the left saying, "Let's get up our guns." And I mean, this is a dude who literally killed people in Afghanistan with a sniper. And his side project is, I mean, he has a business in professional knives. That's his side business. This was a video he posted, and I was like, bro, I'm an independent, but I can
relate.
You know,
I was raised liberal, and most of my family members were liberal, and then Trump came along, and now most of my family members are Trumpers, and I'm a liberal, kind of left outside, like, and they all look at me and they hate me, you know, like, but I'm like, no, we were all the same once, remember?
Yeah,
you know, like, just remember.
Oh yeah. I mean, so I was born in California, but my mom was born in California, my dad in Alabama. And so half my life is the red states of Alabama. Half my life is California. Everybody in California who I grew up with, pretty fucking common sense type of people. Everybody who, even all my friends now in Alabama and Florida, they are Trumpers, bro. They are.
Yeah, all of my friends in North Carolina, they're like aliens to me, you know. Like I see their posts and I'm like, who are you?
Yeah. I'm like, why are you posting this shit, this anti-vax shit, when half your state is dying and 90% of the people in the fucking hospitals are unvaxxed idiots who just fell into a trap? You know, like, come on, guys, let's get together.
Yeah, I mean, I had COVID. I got my vaccine. You know, I'm about to go get my booster because I had long-lasting COVID, so it never really kind of went away. Yeah. So I have another chest exam at the end of this month, and then they'll determine if I can get my booster, and I'm gonna probably get it. But yeah, like, to me, it's just it's nonsensical, right? Like, you're arguing against saving your own life, protecting yourself. Sure, breakthrough cases happen, but then those breakthrough cases, you're not in really very much danger from the COVID. It literally is more just like a flu at that point.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, there's been a bunch of interesting articles. Honestly, you know, someone who smokes weed, we're more at risk.
I'm smoking weed right now.
Yep, so we're more, I mean, this is true. This is true. We're more at risk for breakthrough cases. That's one of the things that's been reported. But the second report that's come out is there's now a pill for when you do get COVID. That makes it so it basically kills the COVID.
Yeah, and the reason why, like, you're more susceptible if you smoke weed, because the weed, you know,
lungs.
It attacks the lungs. It does a lot of medicinal shit to the rest of your body, but it's not good for your lungs.
Exactly.
And COVID attacks the lungs.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, you know, it's. I guess I came on to just tell you that, dude. Like, it's so different now with. You know, you can't tell your family members, like, facts anymore. There's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as, like.
I think we're going to be killing each other soon. I really
do. We are literally fucked. Like,
I think so too. Like, yeah.
I saw my cousin, dude. He has the hottest wife too. They live in San Diego, and he probably in $1 million house or whatever. The seal that I'm talking. And my 51-year-old sister just got married to her boyfriend she's been with for like 25 years, and that's the first time we've seen each other after like 10 years. And dude, this kid was born in fucking Canada. Like, when he came and moved with me, he was like the tree hippie hugger. Like, both of us, like, when, you know, what's funny too is in California in the early 70s, we all owned like 22s and shotguns. Like the Second Amendment thing, you know, that wasn't like a thing. There was no, you know, we all had 22s to go out and fucking
so I grew
target
up
shooting, you know,
I grew up with everybody had a gun. everybody.
Yeah, it was like not a big deal. And now it is literally like, hey, if you want to ban guns, I'm on this side. And it's a totally different world now. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a risk manager. I'm a business continuity manager for one of the biggest mortgage companies in the entire United States. And with that said, owning a gun is about risk. It really is. It's about risk. And
you're exactly right. Yeah, for real.
It's just risk and where you live. And so if you look at statistics, owning a gun, there's more people who will die by a family member or commit suicide or get killed by a gun if you own a gun.
If you have a gun in your home, the risks of your child dying by that gun increases 50%.
Right. Yeah. And not even just your child, but like family members.
Yeah, but that's the stat I like to use because that hits the parents hard. They're like, oh, really?
It's
I could hurt my child. Yes, because it happens all the time. I used to get into my dad's gun cabinet. He kept it locked. It was easy for me to get into.
Yeah, easy. And if you are someone who is suffering depression, it's much easier to kill yourself with a gun. And those stats are plenty available for everybody in the world to see. So it's
just facts. You're spitting facts. Yeah.
It's just like a fact thing. And so the chances of a family member getting killed, a loved one getting killed, you committing suicide, or someone grabbing your gun and committing suicide, far greater than you ever having to defend yourself by a criminal. With that said, if I told you guys I grew up in Los Angeles, bunch of gangs around me. If I was living in Compton, I would own a gun for sure.
This is a true story. So
it's a risk.
I am anti-gun. I am very anti-gun. Everybody knows that I put my stand out there for years. I am actually considering buying a gun.
Yeah.
Because I have people actively trying to dox me, trying to find where I live. I don't know what they want to do with that information. I understand the risk if I bring a gun into this house that my daughter's life becomes. I mean, I know those numbers. I understand the statistics, but I also know that I can't protect her if somebody comes to my door and I don't have a gun and they do. So I'm weighing that out. But that's because I'm in this I put myself in this position that most people aren't in, right? Most people aren't getting death threats or most people aren't trying to have themselves doxxed and people are trying to find out where they live for whatever reason. So
buy a dog. Buy a great guard dog. That's always
I think I'm going that route. I think I'm going to get a dog and it's going to be a good guard dog. So there is some element of protection and I don't have to bring a gun into the house. I think I'm going to go that route.
Nick, I will tell you, like, I'm someone who lives in California, grew up in California, and obviously, everybody knows California is a not gun-friendly state, even though I just told you I grew up with a 22 and a shotgun. But I'm probably moving to Tampa, Florida, the Trump capital of fucking the world.
Yeah. Oh man.
And not only that.
Beware the public squares because that's where they burn people.
I mean, but if you know United States, Florida is like alligators, fucking snakes.
Yeah.
Iguanas, boas, feral hogs,
giant centipedes.
Brain bug would be in heaven.
Oh yeah. Like swimming in freshwater lakes where you're gonna get a brain bug that kills you. I mean, it's horrible there. So don't get me wrong. I'm like totally for guns when I go to Florida. I'm like, you know what? My kid's not going into the freaking forest here without a gun.
I'm anti-gun. I think that, we live in a consumer society, and as much as I hate that consumer society, while we have it, we don't really necessarily need to hunt for our food. Some outstanding circumstances. But I think, like, in America, we have 365 million guns distributed. I think that's like a playbook for just massive anarchy, genocide. to play out. You know, like for me, it's very dangerous. I think, and especially when you consider we don't even regulate our gun companies. Like we don't hold them accountable. We don't like, oh, you destroy your guns at the end of the year, but we don't go observe that. We don't make sure they're destroying those guns. We don't make sure that they're not selling them into the black markets. I think that we have to have, in my opinion, a utopian world, get rid of all guns, and we can go back to just killing each other with knives. But that'll never happen. So we just have to have some massive legislation that's going to really suck in some regulation.
I have to push.
Guys, okay. I'm really sorry because I'm sensing that this could go on for easily another hour.
This could go forever.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's getting kind of close now to when I have to go to sleep. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, add me.
And you know, I'm kind of on a break right now, but you can get a hold of me at The Raging Atheist, The Raging Atheist, DA Raging Atheist @gmail.com. And once I start live streaming again, I'd love to have a friendly conversation about a gun argument.
Yeah,
because I think you know, we probably agree on everything else but guns, and it would be great to have that conversation.
Awesome. I agree. Thanks, Matt. I mean, Cedar.
No problem. Yeah. Look, I just want to thank absolutely everybody who has showed up tonight. Everybody who has been on the panel. This is one of the more enjoyable videos that I've done in a little while. So like, subscribe, do all that YouTuber bollocks, and we shall talk to you in the next one.
Thanks, Steven, for